You're on.
All right. Morning. It's Monday, March 1st. Happy new month. Tufton Borough Board of Selectmen's meeting. Let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before we get started with our agenda, is there any public input?
I have none.
All right. Begin with review and approval of minutes. First up is the regular meeting minutes from last Monday.
I'll move approval.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Second is the non-public minutes from 11:05 on Monday.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And they are not sealed, correct? In addition to. All right. Move along. Mr. Owen,
Yes, sir.
come on down.
Okay. Okay, I'm Randy Owen, and I'm the owner of one farm island, I think this is, and I'm here for, I guess, to raise or ask or just raise two questions. And the first question is, and I'm going to use an analogy, is why is the tail wagging the dog? And then the second question is why, and it leads into the second part, but why are we not following local law? And by not following local law, we're forcing the residents to spend enormous amounts of money to go to Superior Court when there are existing laws at the town level that if they were only followed, we wouldn't have to go to Superior Court. And then I guess the second prong or third prong to that question is, why even after we go to Superior Court, get the action of a Superior Court judge and a Superior Court ruling, which has got to be far superior, or far, excuse the use of the word 3 times, but above and beyond local law. And we're still in a quagmire and still approving stuff against a Superior Court judge. So just to set things, should be no question of who and what that I believe is the tail wagging the dog. But I started on the farm island with a simple mission for my family. I have 3 kids. My partner has 3 kids. I now have a new partner with no kids that plans to have a bunch of kids. And my parents are on Cow Island, and we have 3 siblings, and somehow it works out that one sibling gets to camp on Cow Island 51 weeks out of the year, and I get it 1. So I sit on Farm Island with my 3 kids with a plan to do something, and it was met with, an organized amount of resistance who allegedly was a good steward of land, which I would argue is completely correct. And one of the things that is fundamental, and just as an example, I have photography of when this other good steward, Seth Casel's Camp Belknap, cut a lagoon with thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of what I called raw sewage. I was corrected to say it was gray water, and I guess that's okay to swim in gray water, not in my eyes, but that's what some try to explain. And I'm using social media, and I'm asked repeatedly if in fact that this guy, if in fact that this guy, that they didn't release this stuff, this gray water into the lake, provide me manifest of where you moved it, provide me something that says you didn't do it. And as of yet, all I can go with is gravity. Gravity, the lake's down here, the cesspool or whatever was up here. He could argue that it was an accident. If it was an accident, why didn't he report it?
When we talk, time frame we're talking about with that?
I believe this was like 16 or 17, 2016 or 17.
So
Before they approved.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. But I guess I don't want to go to the merits of what's going on. What I want to do is express that, I came to this town as a good Samaritan, or as, just interested in the town. I opened up the rule book, my attorney opened up the rule book, my engineer opened up the rule book. We went to Far Island, there was no ZBA exception, there was no wetlands violation. Everything we did was exactly to the local law and state law.
So you put a subdivision application into the planning board, and you went through the process of the planning board, and it was approved with conditions, right?
Yes, but that was painstakingly expensive for me because of someone that said I would violate the shoreline protection. I would destroy the bay. I would pollute the bay. I would ruin the town beach. I would ruin the town parking lot. I would ruin and then triggered archaeology.
So do you feel that the town treated your application unfairly?
I believe that the town lets Camp Belknap run them like a puppet on the string. It took 6 meetings. It took thousands and thousands of my money because of Camp Belknap saying I was going to do this. Now they came up with a petition with a list,
So hold on. Let's not spend this morning relitigating this case. You've gotten your subdivision approval. Now you've made 2 or 3 allegations based on what? I don't want to hear about tails and dogs and all the rest of that shit. Tell me exactly what you think we need to do to correct a problem that's current, not a problem from 2016.
Those estimates last 10, 15, 20 years. They're still swimming in it.
Okay. Camp Belknap's installing a new septic system. Okay, they have a permit to install that septic.
Okay, well, you asked me to cite this thing. They said I would violate the 250-foot, shoreline protection list. They said I would do this, right? They just studied.
We're going to go through this one more time.
We're back.
We're not going to relitigate what happened in the
We're back to the
past.
subdivision. I understand it was a painful process for you. There was a lot of opposition from people in the area. As I told people that came to that meeting that were opposed to the development, the way you control a piece of property is you own it. They had an opportunity to buy it before you did. They didn't. Okay? They came back after the fact and decided they wanted to buy it then, but the cow was out of the barn, so to speak. So you purchased it. You came to the planning board. The planning board gave you an approval for your subdivision, right? They challenged it in court and lost, correct?
Correct.
So your subdivision is approved under the conditions that the planning board put on it. They brought up a lot of things that may or may not have been relevant in the hearing process. Those were explored extensively, but that whole project that's yesterday's news at this point. I understand you still have an issue. Are there specific things today with respect to what is going on that
Yes, the meaning of this is, and the foundation of my arguments are, they came up with a list of things that I would violate. The studies only prove they violated this. They violated everything on the list. They said I would destroy the loon thing. The loon people came out and did a study and said, okay, well, we don't see any loon nesting here.
Okay, but again, we're back on Farm Island.
But no, we're not. We're not.
I think, all right,
Let me just finish, and I don't want to stay on Farm Island, and I don't want to stay on the merits. I'm talking about me following the law. Camp Belknap violating law after law after law after law. Their studies prove 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 violation, citations, summons, okay? Yet my town allowed this to go on. You say this is old news. I'm still paying that $100,000 that they wasted of money. I'm still paying that bill. I'm still making payments. So it's current events.
But,
So
it's not current events because all of the action associated with that has happened. It's come to a conclusion in your favor. Yes, just like when you buy a piece of property, you're paying a mortgage or you take out a loan for something. And it's unfortunate when that happens. But you're sitting here saying that the town is not following our own regulations.
Correct.
Okay, so
All right, well, in that
let's
case,
provide a specific example of something
Okay,
that is happening.
so you issued a building permit for them to go forward and build a firing range very close to the water, and one I'm opposed to, and obviously other people are opposed to it. The town, Jack Parsons, I asked him a question. Were you aware before you gave the building permit that there was an appeal? The answer was yes. I then said to Jack Parsons, have you ever heard of an appeal of a subdivision or a building or a site plan review that did ever not include a stay order? His answer is no. Yet this town issues a building permit for him to go forward. We clarify, we identify the building permit. Now I got a stay order on Fire Mountain. This is relevant. I got a stay on Fire Mountain. What did I do? I waited a year and 2 months. Did I bug the judge? Did I come to the town and waste town money? Did I waste money with Attorney Sager? Did I waste money with Attorney Baxley? No, I waited. I did not file an emergency order. I didn't file a motion to clarify a stay order, which is as clear as a bell. And then we go to the Superior Court judge and says, Judge, do you really know what you're doing? Do you know what a stay order is? She goes, I absolutely know what a stay order is. Bang! Reaffirms the stay order. Now you guys again signed something in direct violation of the debt sale. The town got a summons.
And what did we do in violation of the stay order?
That memorandum, that most recent memorandum.
That's not,
That
had nothing to do with the shooting range.
No, but the stay order is not just the shooting range.
It's the stay orders for specific action,
Right.
which was the approval of the site plan for the shooting range. So
The shooting range, the 4 buildings, the infrastructure, the power, the water, everything was stayed. Everything.
Okay, well, that's not our reading of it.
I'm sorry?
That's not our reading of it, and I don't think that's the court's reading of it.
Yeah,
What we did with the memorandum of
You're wrong.
understanding.
You're wrong.
Well, I'm wrong, you're wrong, we're all wrong then. If you have an issue with what they're currently asking us and with the memorandum of understanding, then take that back to the Superior Court.
And again, you're in my pocket again. Over Camp Belknap, it violates, and you want me to go to
No, what they
Superior
were
Court.
looking for in that memorandum of understanding was the ability to operate within the constraints of COVID, their camp during this coming camping season. They needed social distancing, so they needed temporary tent platforms to spread their campers out. That's what the
On a lot with a stay order on it.
I'm sorry?
That memorandum asked you to sign approval against the Superior Court judge on a lot with a stay order.
Nothing in that memorandum of understanding was involved in that initial stay order. Nothing.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You cannot, no, I am not wrong. And I've read the stay order, I've read the memorandum of understanding, I've read the judge's decision in your case. We feel confident. We've had our attorney read it.
I anticipated you were going to bring up Mr. Attorney Sager. Attorney Sager, in that court, made an argument. He went on for like 3, 4, 5 minutes. And the judge says, you made the same argument 180 degrees out last week. Then that judge, Attorney Sager, makes an argument and says, well, we're unable to do construction underground. It's just when you start going above ground. Now, I think we all know enough about building. I just built a building in Hooksett, and I got 550 in. 350,000 is in the ground. The other 200 is above the ground. So we go to your orders, your planning board. It says everything. Infrastructure, underground, footings, power, everything is part of construction. So that memorandum enables them to hook up stuff that they did illegally on that lot, which is never go to
Okay,
ZBA.
there's no hookups involved in that memorandum of understanding.
But you're locating campers
They're-
on the lot with a
they're-
stay order.
Right, but there are no septic or water hookups to those temporary campers.
But they're still on the lot.
Well,
with a
they're
stay
still in the
order.
lot, absolutely. I mean, I guess if we want to expand the conversation, there's a complaint about gray water dripping into the lake, or running into the lake, or whatever, but we want to preclude them from preventing that by not letting them build their septic system. It just seems like that's at cross purposes. If your argument is that you don't want them to pollute the lake, then have them have a fully compliant septic system.
But let me reaffirm why I'm here. Two things. I want to affirm that I follow the law. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars following the law. We live here, we're in the United States, we're in New Hampshire, we're in this town to follow that law. There is existing laws that are in place that would solve this. You don't need to go to Superior Court. The laws as written are right in your book. There is a stay order on that separate lot which is never going to ZBA. That, all of those structures on there should never go to ZBA. Now, I draw a comparison on whose word, and I'm sitting here anyway, and I speak the truth. That camp has riddled this town with lies. You go into that little town office, and I was sitting in the town meeting when they were talking about me, and they said, talking about that lot, and they said, well, we built in 1960 they're liars. We built in 1960, we bought in 1960, we bought the Russ Winton property. Well, I was born in 1959 and I'm a boat mechanic. And I was working there. And I wasn't 1 or 2 or 3. I was like 15 or 11, 12 years old as a marine mechanic. They didn't buy it in 1960. You go to the town, it says 1960 they built the buildings. They didn't own it until 12 years later. And they do that so they can hide behind never going to ZBA. That lot is never going to ZBA. It needs to go to ZBA. They bought it after the zoning board was in place.
So, and ZBA is having a hearing this week to consider that, right?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, they are.
But consistent with what I know about other towns too, and I do my developing, a lot of it in Hooksett. Hooksett might be considered Manhattan compared to Tuftonboro. But we don't get a next move until appeal periods are ended. So in other words, if we go to ZBA, and ZBA says, yeah, go ahead and do what you want to do, we have to wait the appeal period. Then we go to planning. Now in this town, zoning is one, and then 3 days later we're planning. That's not right. Why waste all that time? The planning board, members are, again, I'm asking you just to follow the law. Save this town money. Don't pay Attorney Sager to make arguments that, Attorney Sager will make an argument whether it makes sense or not. Okay? A good attorney says, no, I'm not going to make that argument because 2 months from now I'm going to be in front of that same judge and I'm making a stupid argument over here. So 2 months from now I'm going to be making a relevant argument. He's going to think I'm an idiot. Sager time and time makes an argument that has no merit. I mean, he's going to make an argument that there's no maple trees in that picture. And there's maple trees in that picture, That's Attorney Sager. You got a bad attorney. But in any case, I listened to Sager live. I listened to his performance, and you guys are following Sager. Sager's wasting this town's money. I'm not a taxpayer in this town. And my money gets blown, the recorder's money is getting blown, the town money is getting blown. There are laws in place. Open your books, follow your law. A Superior Court judge gave you a summons. Now,
She didn't give us a summons. She gave us a stay order.
No, she gave you a summons.
Well, then our attorney answered the summons.
Well, listen to me. The attorney answered the summons, and then, I think, Bill, you signed it, was directly in violation of what the summons was. Like,
No. Okay, understand what a summons is. I mean, I hate to take you to law school on this thing, but a summons is a notice that you are complaining about something that's happening. It's not a court ruling, it's not a decision, it's not a directive. It is your complaint. So our attorney answers your complaint, and then the court decides to have a hearing. So the summons doesn't rule. I've read the summons that was issued by your attorney, and
look, I know there was no incarceration. I know there was no handcuffs.
it's
But
not- it's
there was
not-
no acquittal. Within the summons, the judge reaffirmed.
No,
her
the
statement.
judge did nothing in the summons. The summons was your complaint. That's it.
But it was a hearing.
Okay, and then there's a hearing, and then the judge issues a decision.
Right.
And so when you look at the decision, which is the stay order, it's our understanding that it doesn't stay them from doing anything at all. It stays them from certain activities that were complained in your
Not mine.
complaint. I mean, was your complaint universal enough to say that they couldn't do anything? Because I read the complaint, I didn't see that.
Specifically says you have to go to ZBA before you do anything. No, not stay. Your laws say you go to ZBA, you get approval to move and do anything commercial in low-density residential. So the stay order is about ZBA. We have not gone to ZBA ever on this site.
So the contention is that CBA needs to
Decide whether or not
decide
it
on
pre-exists.
use of the property based upon the record and the information that was presented to the planning board in the process of going through the site plan approval. It indicated that ZBA did not need to go to ZBA, and that's why it didn't go to ZBA. So,
But the appeal,
right, so the complaint,
appeal,
Well, the appeal goes to Superior Court.
right,
So that hasn't happened because we haven't had the ZBA meeting yet. Is that right? And Belknap's position is that they're pre-existing use prior to the implementation of planning.
of
Planning and zoning.
yeah, right,
via lies, but yes, and in the appeal.
yeah.
I'm not gonna start calling people liars. Because and you're certainly welcome to. But it doesn't move the ball down the field. All it does is create conflict. And what we're trying to decide is,
There is an appeal in place. The appeal goes right back to ZBA. So until ZBA is done, there is no planning board that has any merit. Planning board is useless without a zoning board. And then in a real town, you have a zoning board, you wait the appeal period, and then planning goes, okay?
So, but the zoning board only gets involved if the use is not consistent with the zoning.
And this
Okay.
is low density residential.
So, and the contention here is that it's not consistent with,
Low density residential.
right, or pre-existing. So there's a difference of opinion, so somebody went to court. Doesn't absolutely mean it has to go to ZBA. As I said, when it went to planning board, and the
But
record
the
was
state-
reviewed, and information was listened to based upon when the camp started using it, and what the acceptable use was, and when did the zoning change and all of this.
we back out
It-
of Colorado?
Huh?
Are we back out?
No, this is for the firing range.
Okay.
So this part of Camp Belknap was not part of the original 1905 or whatever it is. It was I guess a trailer park at one time that the camp acquired and began using for camp activities. And the question is, when did they begin using it, and what was the zoning like then? And are these accepted uses for what it was? based upon the information, the planning board was persuaded that it did not need to go to ZBA. So an appeal was filed because they think it needs to,
Okay.
which is fine, goes to court.
Yeah, the judge reaffirmed no electrical, no water lines, no everything.
No, that,
Oh, is that the order or is it?
No,
no,
that's the complaint.
Don McWhorter, Chase Point. I just wanted to correct Chip because he said the memorandum of understanding was not gonna allow the camp to hook the trailers up to the existing,
Right.
if you will, illegally installed sewer and water. Correct?
That's my understanding.
Well, I've got it right here.
They were gonna use the common septic facilities that were available at the camp.
I have it down. It's West Camp, Area D. Place and connect to Camp Belknap septic system, electric and water. So,
Buffalo extension cords.
All right.
I mean, it's right in your memorandum of understanding that I just don't want to leave the meeting with the impression that they're not gonna hook up electric and
okay.
water and sewer,
And maybe
because it's right in your memorandum.
also in the memorandum is the temporary nature of this,
Exactly.
just so
But
we're clear on that. So it was an expansion of that system on a permanent
It
basis.
isn't, but
On a
it's an
permanent basis.
expansion.
It's an expansion for this season.
And the judge's order said no construction. No, it said no construction.
Yeah.
And I can pull that up on my phone if you'd like.
I'd love to see it.
And further, it enabled them to fix the water and not the water for all of this illegal expansion. And they're gonna hook up the water to the illegal expansion.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that they live by the health and safety standards that they need to have for this season. But I have to restate.
Live by health and safety standards.
Our position is that it's a short-term fix.
Thousands and thousands of gallons that they release.
Right, and I guess my confusion about that position is why you wanna,
Because we're dealing with a pathological liar.
aside from that, I mean, this is a situation that needs remedying, and now you wanna stop the remedy, so I'm a little confused about
Well,
that.
the remedy is an excavator goes,
Okay, explain
that's a
that.
person.
I'm sorry?
He took an excavator and cut the.
No, I'm not talking about what he did. What I'm talking about, or what they did, what I'm talking about is, if you feel that there's a problem with pollution, wouldn't it be more logical to correct the problem with the pollution?
Well, again, this is about character. This is about following laws. This is about breaking laws. This is about a pathological liar that cut that thing and then sent hundreds and hundreds of his campers that he claims are dear to him into that water. The Rollins, the McCorders, the Owens, into the water after he breached it.
Then that's a situation that needs to be brought up before DES. I mean, if it actually happened, that's a violation that we can't remedy that violation.
I'm just giving you the quality of the answers, the paperwork in your records. Go down, sit down the street, sit down. Building built in 1960, then buy it till 1974 or 5.
That will come up before the ZBA. Obviously, if that's their position.
My position is we're dealing with a liar.
It doesn't
My position
matter.
is, again, my purpose here. Bill, Chip, Matt, we have laws. Why?
And we do our best every day
I don't think,
to work with town regulations and state law, every day, day in and day out. And I'm, in this conversation, what I'm not getting to is, you you believe that the memorandum of understanding that we signed for the camp to allow them to operate at normal capacity with social distancing this year is not following the law, and that's the piece that we've not established. And clearly, we're aware of the law, we're aware of the temporary stay that was issued by the judge, and based upon the temporary nature of the tent platforms and the trailers, we don't see that there's an inconsistency there.
Well, the inconsistency is lot 39-1-1
13.
or 30, whatever, that 13 has not gone to ZBA. And until it goes to ZBA,
So, that's a question for somebody else to decide, okay? So, it's been used as camp since sometime in the 1980s.
Well, let's go into your own rules. Our rules, we have them. We don't need any. Your rules say 12 months, no use of that type of status. It's gone. Now, Farm Island, 12 months, no use of that status last year. It's gone. It's gonna go back to ZBA. That's what your rules say.
The subdivision?
Not the subdivision, the non-conforming use. I'm here to follow the law. I will.
But really the question here is if it's a grandfathered use, and that was the position that
It
was.
goes away in 12 months.
The grandfathered use,
If vacated for 12 months, it's gone. No argument. That's the law.
so the camp acquired this in the 80s, and they've been using it as a part of the camp since the 80s.
One might argue that the camp didn't operate last year, so that grandfather used for the entire camp.
No.
That's what the law says.
Now we're getting into bullshit because
It's not what the law says anyway, because
What does the law say?
the law says 12 months of non-use reversion, but case law says you can't just obfuscate through lawsuits for 12 months and then the guy loses everything. It doesn't work that way.
I agree. I
So,
agree.
and-
But you can't go through lawsuits
and
and
if-
kill Randy Owens on the
if
court.
what you're hanging your hat on is the fact that the camp didn't operate last year because of the pandemic.
I'm not pursuing that.
Huh?
I'm not pursuing that, by the way.
No, but that's what you're contending is, because they didn't have any campers last year because of the pandemic and because they didn't have an opportunity to operate under the governor's emergency order, that therefore their pre-existing use is no longer available.
Well, what I'm talking
I'd be happy to be.
I'm talking about the Whitman property. And the Whitman property, they didn't use for 10 years, not 12.
That's gonna be a difficult case to make.
Right.
I mean, I've been trying to make the case in what I'm seeing right here, that I launched a boat in 1960 into Beach Pond to go fishing. And it was at the boat launch that the town of Tuftonboro had to Beach Pond. And I'm having a difficult time establishing historically that that boat launch existed in 1960. And I've lived here my whole life. So I should have every opportunity to be able to establish that just on my good word, but it's not how it works. So you're gonna go before whatever magistrate or whatever board and say, they didn't use it for 10 years after they bought it from Whitman. How are you gonna establish that?
From all the neighbors.
It just becomes hearsay at that point. You need to have some sort of fact-based establishment.
Well, nonetheless, the property was in conservation. The land was in conservation. They clearly established it wasn't being used. If you put it in conservation, they themselves put it in conservation. How can they argue they were consistently using it commercially?
I think we're. Randy, I think we're as far as we're going to get today. We have a difference of opinion here, right? You don't believe that the memorandum of understanding that this board signed is consistent with law and local regulation. We do.
And we show you in black and white what Amy tells you to do after you get a summons.
I haven't seen it in black and white.
Don't
Yeah.
just have it.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I just realized I had my glasses, so.
Oh, here.
Oh, they were here.
And just so we're clear, we have no ability to direct the ZBA as to their action. Because they're a quasi judicial board that is separate from the Board of Selectmen. And there's a reason for that, because if someone wants to bring an action, or there's some problem with the Board of Selectmen, that's the board that brings the action. The same thing happens with the planning board. We can't direct that. We couldn't call them up on the phone and say, look, the guy wants to buy the half a Farm Island, we're not interested. Just don't even bother with the guy. Put him on hold for a year because we're gonna raise the money and put it in conservation. We don't have the ability to do that. I suppose we could do it, but it would be totally against the law. But it's not in our purview to direct the planning board on how they decide cases.
I don't, if I go back to Farm Island, the planning board did the job to the nth degree at their expense, at my expense, at the town's expense, with the bunch of attorneys. It didn't need to be done to the nth degree and beyond, and debated beyond. It was only done like that way because Camp Belknap is a pig. They had a vendetta to bankrupt me. They have a vendetta to bankrupt Doug, okay? We enabled them to go through tons and tons of my money, tons and tons of town money for their benefit. Meanwhile, they pay no taxes, which is another whole story. But we are enabling. And I said to you, I had two purposes. And one of them, I'm using my crazy analogies. Don laughs at all my analogies. But why is the tail wagging the dog? We're the dog, they're the tail. They went to 357 people and got that petition signed with a pack of lies. Said, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. And only made up a list. And the list said, shoreline protection. They came up with 5 or 6 violations, Camp did. They said, we're gonna go to the loon. Randy's gonna screw the loons and the bald eagles. They go to the loons. The loon committee comes back. Camp Belknap, this is their word. Camp Belknap destroyed Lake Winnipesaukee, northern Lake Winnipesaukie's best loon nesting site. They destroyed it. You go right down the list, time after time. Everything that they said mean old badass Randy Orton's gonna do, they'd already done. Now I'm coming to you and I opened up your rule books. I read your rule books. I read it with an attorney, I read it with an engineer and an engineer assistant, and we followed the rule. We came into the planning board, there was no ZBA exception, there was no setback exception, no wetlands exception, there was nothing. It was not I went in town of Hooksett and I was up again doing my little
Now,
development.
Randy, before you get too far down the road, I sat in every one of those planning board meetings, okay? And I remember that there were several changes that you made to your subdivision when issues were brought up by members of the public, representatives from abutters, that sort of thing. One of the things was the number of lots changed, correct?
Yes.
The orientation of lots changed. There were a number of things in there that were done to become consistent with our zoning, correct?
The engineer had a wrong lake level. And the lake level we use is from 120 years ago, so he used
Right,
to
I mean,
more
there's
further.
lots of things there, but the initial plan that you presented, subdivision plan, you altered based upon input, correct? And it's better than it was to begin with. There were a number of other things in terms of experts that were brought in to review different things at a cost, and it was done primarily to answer concerns from the public, abutters, the camp, others, right? And it all was at a cost, but again, that's done. If you have specific issues with the way somebody is managing their property, whether it's consistent with the law or not. Those are the things to address, not your own situation that went through and was approved.
I understand though, and I concur. In every site plan, every site, or every plan, building plan, site plan, this say subdivision, it's the only subdivision I ever did, but every plan, I go into a town, and it gets amended. Clearly gets amended. But again, I'm here for two reasons. Follow the law. Why is the tail wagging the dog? This Camp Belknap bullied and manipulated that town. And a site plan that should have cost me $25,000 or $30,000 cost me $100. A site plan that should have cost the town nothing cost the town, right to know is the real law. I'll look it up.
And I would have more sympathy for your position if the site plan, as you originally presented it to the planning board, was the site plan that was approved. It was because of input that came out of hearings that the site plan was corrected.
And we budgeted and we planned to do
Well, all I'm saying is,
process, we know that.
the site plan did not come to planning board in the form that it left planning board because there were some legal issues with it that were brought out through the hearing process. So the hearing process worked. There were a number of things that were brought up in the hearing process by abutters and others that the planning board decided were non-issues as well, correct?
And I thank the planning board for that. But the planning board themselves went through a painstaking procedure. Every plan that you bring is a moving target.
And I will tell you that we do that with, this is not the only, this is perhaps the most significant one in the last few years, but there are often painful procedures involved. It's the nature of the process to provide the opportunity for the greater community to participate in that decision.
Right.
So that,
And it's not an inside deal.
so that in the dark of night,
The thing you have to remember is, the reason why Tuftonboro only has a couple of condominium complexes is because of stringent planning and zoning. The reason you went through that process was because we allow public input into the procedure. And having allowed public input in, the planning board has to address that. I mean, the whole premise is to maintain Tuftonboro, the character of Tuftonboro, the development of Tuftonboro in a consistent manner that has been made. I mean, I remember when planning and zoning was created in the 70s, and there was a significant effort towards not becoming Alton Bay, not becoming Belmont, not becoming Weir's Beach. You know, I facetiously say that everybody on Moultonborough Neck should pay the taxes in Tuftonboro because we give them such a nice view. But we give them a nice view because of stringent planning and zoning. You went through the process. That's just how it works here. I have a piece of property on North Line Road that I was thinking about developing, and a potty, half-time amateur archaeologist called the state and said there were Indian artifacts on top of that hill. I don't want to tell you how many zeros there were after the number that I spent on that.
I remember.
All based upon an anonymous tip. I just knew who it was. But it's just a process we have to go through when we have to.
Well, I concur, and on the flip side, that's why I'm here. Because I think, if we go to the merits, what Camp Belknap is doing is going to harm that. And, if some of the things they cited that I was going to do boat traffic and this and that, and there's times I can't get between Case Island and Farmland because Camp Belknap has consumed it. And they say that boat traffic, but.
well, let's come back to the specific issue that
Which is follow the law.
Which is the.
Follow the law.
The
With
memorandum.
regard to the law, I'm speaking to expansion. And Camp Belknap is lying to you. They're expanding leaps and bounds. They lie on the amount of kids that are there. The amount of boats that are in there is quadrupled. They just, and then they're destroying the quality of water. Now, when the Indians were here, we just put 300 people swimming in the water at the same time. And I'm being a boat, being a boat dealer, I follow, other towns and other camps. In fact, I sold Camp Belknap a ski boat. And I sold Camp Jungle Deer all kinds of boats and Maitina. So I go to the camps, I do the shorefront, do the waterfront. An example though, Camp Young Deer is on Babusick Lake. And they found and did studies that the lake could not sustain putting hundreds of kids in the water. So they built a swimming pool. And they have the kids now swimming in the swimming pool to take the pressure off from the lake. I mean, if you know, and I think, Bill, you said you drove by it, if you know how that goes down in there, that water gets down between Farm and Chase is only 2 or 3 feet deep. And that cove just is jammed up with what's going on. They're putting hundreds of kids in there. And I think, a proactive thing that they're gonna have to do is put in a pool.
And that may be the case. But let's go back to what we're talking about today, which is this memorandum of understanding. The memorandum of understanding allows them to operate at the same capacity that they have in the past, but with social distancing. That's why there's the additional
But
accommodation.
the memorandum is allowing them to move to a separate lot
Yeah.
and move an intensification to a separate lot that has never been there before. The land was in conservation. It has never been there. It's not been there in 12 years. It's not been there in 12 months. And the memorandum allows them to use illegal infrastructure that Judge Amy said they could not continue to work on. So that's where the memorandum's in conflict.
Okay. The issue at hand on the memorandums or this motion, the stay, that's a copy of a petition signed by.
That noted the judge's order. It said no
That's a
construction.
copy of a petition. I'm looking for the judge's order. I'm not looking for a petition. The Superior Court judge doesn't just initially a petition. They issue an order. That's how it works. So you made a petition.
This petition notes the judge's order in the
Right,
interveners.
right. I appreciate that. So you found issue with what happened after the judge's order, correct?
Correct,
Which prompted that petition,
correct.
correct? What happened?
No,
What happened after that?
no, this is Camp Belknap as an intervener asking to modify the judge's January 7th.
I don't care who did it, you signed that, so I'm just using your name for that purpose. So my question remains, what did the court order after that petition?
The court order, after that, it allowed partially the emergency order. It said that they could,
So I don't have a copy of that.
well, take my word for it, I'll get you a copy.
I'm not saying I'm not taking your word for it.
All right, well,
I'm just saying,
let me tell you.
I haven't been able to review that. So and I think Jack did, or Sager did, somebody, I'm sure somebody did. So our actions are premised upon that.
The judge's order allowed them to, since they disconnected the existing well for various reasons, the judge's emergency order, her answer to that was to allow the camp to hook up the existing system, not to hook up to the 4 proposed cabin sites or the rifle range or the bathhouse. It was just to re-hook up to the existing system.
Okay, and let's just stay on that train of thought.
Okay.
Aside from the rifle range, which I think is before ZBA, as far as the memorandum of understanding is concerned, that happened after that decision was written.
Correct.
So if there's a question about that, that needs to be answered through the court, through the court. I mean, Jack felt as though that fell within the parameters of the exception. If you guys feel it doesn't fall within that parameter, then take it before the court.
Well, there's a broad stay order that's a stay.
There's I'm sorry?
A broad stay order that was issued. Just by the fact that an appeal was issued, you get a stay order. There is no stay order, there's no appeal without a stay. and the stay within the stay goes right back to ZBA, which is the foundation of this, nothing happens. I'm on Farm Island, I stay order. I didn't construct a building, I didn't ask for a building permit, I didn't do anything. I sat on my hands. That's what the law says. So you go to the judge and ask for a motion of clarification, the simplest of orders. Simple. And she said, the stay order stands, but you can reconnect what you disabled
So the stay order was modified.
to allow them to reconnect water that they disconnected.
And I appreciate
To get them back to
that's how
2019
you read
status.
that modification. Obviously, our code enforcement officer and our attorney read it a little differently. So maybe there needs to be a clarification of that. I mean, I'm not gonna run the town based upon petitions for stays of operation, whatever. We can only operate based on a ruling. So if our planning board and our CBA rulings are not acceptable to the parties, then they have the ability to go to a court, a superior court, and get an additional ruling.
I'm being told that you were aware of the appeal. Every appeal includes a broad stay order. It's just there.
Right,
John had to
and they
stand
asked
up-
for a modification of the stay order.
No. Well, they did after they
Yeah.
violated it.
Well, be that, the timing isn't what we're talking about.
Yes, we are talking about the time.
No, we're talking about the fact that there was a stay order in place. Camp Belknap felt that that was not gonna work for them, so they appealed that stay order for a modification.
They never appealed it.
They must have, or you wouldn't have gotten
Wait, hold on.
it. You wouldn't have answered it.
They
No,
never
I-
appealed it until they violated it. And then we got reinforcement of the stay order.
Well, that's a position you take up when you're talking
You
about.
already did.
No, when you go in for when you go in as a party to that modification of the stay order, you have the ability, or your attorney had the ability, to say, yeah, wait a minute, they already violated this stay order, and now they're on the back foot in front of the judge. But that all happens in the courtroom. That doesn't happen because you say
And
it
it
happened.
did. Done.
Okay, so
It's done. So the stay order got modified
okay,
to stop them, well, the stay order continued. No construction, no underground, no above ground, no wiring, no plumbing. That continued. The only exception to the stay order was to reconnect the water. Now, she wasn't real specific, she should have been, but to reconnect the water. And I gotta believe she said, okay, reconnect the water back to what you had in 2019 before you disabled it. Now, what they're trying to do is go forward and pull one over on Bill and lie like they always do and manipulate and contort like they did with 357 people signing the petition with all lies against Randy Owen and get Bill in trouble and get the town in trouble, spend more money with Sega, spend more money at Don's. They've got probably a pro bono attorney, who knows?
Yeah.
And well, not, but anyway, and burn us out and bankrupt us so they get their way.
I don't think they're trying to bankrupt you.
Oh yeah, they said they were.
Oh, well, maybe they are. but
And they said they were trying, they said Don's almost out of money. so
I
we
think
gotta
if
move on.
you, I doubt that the board of directors of Camp Belknap has issued a, position of wanting to bankrupt anybody.
I disagree.
Well, disagree all you want.
Well, maybe so, maybe
But
not the whole board of
point-
directors,
The
because
point
they've
of
got to
what
look
we're
at some decent
doing
people. there.
here is that our code enforcement officer and our attorney.
I heard your attorney argue, don't even think about supporting us with that guy. It's right in your book, and he makes the argument that they can do underground plumbing, they can do this, they can do wiring, they can do this, it's in your book.
Yeah.
He'll argue that the sun's not in the sky when it is.
Okay. I mean, I deal with this my whole life, it appears. But, spend $150,000 to go to law school, figure out how the law works and how to read the law, and then talk to me about how our attorneys are working for us. What happens is that he's taking a position premised upon what the court order has said that allows them to do a memorandum of understanding. I don't
So in week one, he argues that you know, that thing was green, and then weeks one, he says, no, that's purple. The argument is, it's an attorney saying, just 2 weeks ago,
I think
you argued completely different.
Randy, we're kind of wandering all over the reservation.
We're not wandering on the reservation.
Yes,
This
we
is
are.
about following the law.
And-
The law is written, just follow it.
And
The order is
And
issued,
the town of
just follow
Tufton
it.
Borough follows the law. That's what I told you before, that's what I'm telling you now.
Yeah.
All right?
I,
The memorandum of understanding that we signed is not inconsistent with the law or our regulations. We are not allowing an expansion of the camp. We're allowing them to operate in a normal manner with social distancing.
So just for
John?
clarification, the town's position is that you're not going to allow the camp to hook up sewer lines from the trailers to the sewer lines that were installed during the stay order.
We can review the minutes of that meeting where the memorandum of understanding was discussed. And, I mean, I don't have a memory like a steel trap, but my feeling or my memory is that they needed the expansion, but the current systems as they sat were gonna satisfy that. Now, whether the water gets hooked up so that they get fire protection or whatever, that's a different question. But as far as expansion of, I don't remember any discussion about expansion of the septic system.
No, it would be my contention that they don't have to expand the septic system. That particular system has additional capacity. I can professionally state that.
Well, they're not gonna put bathrooms in each of the tents.
No,
They're gonna
I'm not
use-
talking about the tents. They could put 100 tents
Yeah.
wherever they want. I don't care about the tents. I just look at the memorandum of understanding as a way to subvert the court's order that says no construction. It's a way to subvert the court order. I don't think it's right.
So what you're contending is that temporary trailers are construction.
I beg your pardon?
Is your
Well, fine.
argument that they're using trailers as temporary staff housing so that they have more distance between people, that's, you interpret that as construction,
Yes, I do.
and we don't.
Yeah, we don't, and actually, we've got a,
I do. It's in the specific area, Area D. It's exactly where the proposed cabins go. And the cabins, we all agree, are under a stay order.
right,
It says
Well, the
no,
law-
that
the
says
law
no
doesn't say.
construction.
right, but if you, and I don't know if you have a house lot on shore, I think you do. If you decided that your cousin wanted to spend the summer there, you could put an
You could,
RV
yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And if we said, no, you can't without a building permit, you'd say, wait a minute, it says it right here in your regulations.
Yeah, I know it does.
That you can have an RV. Okay, well, why can you have an RV and Cape Donut can't?
Because they installed water, sewer, and electric lines, which don't meet code, by the way. Jack never inspected them, but that's an aside. But you're gonna allow that, those were installed while there was a stay order issued on that property.
Hey,
And
that's a
now you're
different-
gonna allow them on a temporary,
That's a
let me finish
different
if you,
discussion.
please.
If they,
I'm not done.
oh, fine, finish.
You're gonna, your memorandum of understanding is gonna allow them to bear the fruits of an illegal activity. You're gonna let them hook the water and the sewer up to those lines. And that's in violation of the stay order. That is construction.
Okay. I'll have to get a copy of the memorandum of understanding, but I don't know that that was specifically delineated as an activity.
I just showed you
You showed me the,
the memorandum of understanding.
no, you showed me.
I did. I can show it to you.
You
right
just
now.
showed me your motion.
I showed you the memorandum. Here, I'll get it.
Okay. All right.
But nonetheless, fundamentally, there is no ZBA approval to use this land. So the
So there's a
land-
difference of opinion as to whether ZBA approval is needed or not.
Right.
And that's still to be determined.
Well, there's no difference of opinion if we follow the law.
Well,
And the law says,
so,
vacated for 12 months, which They gave for 12 months. There was never a shooting range there. There was never these camps, these 4 camps there that were trailers or whatever. They were never there. So that lot has never gone to ZBA. Now ZBA says you're not allowed expansion. You're allowed your non-conforming use, provided however it doesn't
So
expand.
I'm not an attorney, you're not an attorney. The planning board's attorney looked at this as it went through the process, and based on that, that was part of what went into the approval, okay? So if you're an attorney and you can read the law and say this is, your contention is your contention. It's not the law, mine
But the
isn't the
stay
law.
order is a law.
Yes,
And
it
the stay
is.
order says this
So,
appeal, God's appeal has merit,
And-
and we're gonna look at it. And in the meanwhile, we sit on our hands.
so,
Are they?
right, so the court is gonna look at the whole issue.
It already did.
But you're,
did.
huh?
It did.
No, it didn't.
It supported the stay order.
No,
Okay,
no,
what
no,
happens-
no. The stay order is so that nothing happens until the court deals with it. It's just to allow things to, right.
In
So-
your sense, go ahead and use it. Put campers on it.
Okay.
As we have for 40 years, right, as we've used it
We're
for 40
going
years.
from campers to shooting range. I mean, if I were Camp Belknap, I'd take that lot that they're talking about, the shooting range, and just incorporate it. Do away with the boundaries altogether. And the problem goes
We're
away.
not understanding this. I'm asking you to follow the law.
And
And the stay order was ordered by the judge, reaffirmed by the judge. Okay? And a stay order's a stay. You don't do anything.
No.
Just like I did on Farmhouse. Well, why didn't
The
she
stay
say
order
that?
Okay, why didn't you modify it?
She
We're going around in a
modified
circle.
it to get that well to feed the
Right.
other lot that's not part
so
of
the
the
stay
stay order.
order had to do with the approved site plan,
Right.
okay? The tents have nothing to do with the approved site plan directly.
No.
The tents have to do with providing,
They don't.
huh?
They-
We're not talking about that.
Right.
Right.
So,
But the trailers do.
but the trailers don't either. They're temporary housing. They're put in there because they can't put all the staff in the normal.
They've got 300 acres of land. They
I
don't
believe
have
that
put
to
them
be
on
an
a violation.
excuse.
Well, but there's,
So if they got 300 acres of land, I can put the camper somewhere else?
Exactly.
Okay, so what's,
They can put them where there's no stay order.
but the stay order has to do with the construction.
113 has a stay
The
order.
stay order has to do with the things that were approved in the site plan.
And the subdivision, and the site plan, the zoning ZBA approval on lot 39, 1-13.
Which may or may not be needed, right,
May not be needed, but in the interim,
right?
a superior court judge, far above you, me, and all 3 of us, says, don't. But you say, go ahead and do it. She said no. It's the
She
law.
said no construction, and we haven't done anything that says that,
But the
That says-
appeal she
Right.
supports says, don't do
I
anything.
apologize. Okay. Cool.
Do you want to read it?
No, I did read it.
Don't read it.
I mean, for the record.
Yeah, let's read it, put it in the record.
No?
Well, no, I'm just retracting my position.
Oh, okay.
I'm happy with that. I mean, I told you to begin with that I don't recall it. You were.
No, I appreciate the retraction, that's all I do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we can revisit the connections. I'm still a little reluctant to put Camp Belknap out of business because of,
They're not out of business, they've got 300 acres of land. They're trying to crowd John into selling his property. They try to buy it from him, they try to squeeze him out. Let's get to the point. They tried to squeeze me out of Farm Island, they're bullies.
well,
okay, I think we're done.
yeah, it's gotta be done.
Gentlemen,
Thank you for reaffirming and understanding that this is perfect.
Chip, what was your retract? What was your retract?
I can't hear you.
What was your retract?
Oh, I had said that I didn't believe they were hooking up the campers to the septic system, but in the MOU, it did allow for that.
And power.
Right. Oh, they can run a power line from anywhere.
And again, our position is that lot, 39-1-13, has got a broad stay on it, and the stay order within the appeal. The
Just-
appeal that the judge has accepted. The judge hasn't kicked this appeal back. She says, we're gonna look at this appeal. We don't know if ZBA is right. We don't know if the planning board is right. But we're gonna look at this, and meanwhile, let us look at it and decide. I didn't put a Marriott on Farm Island while I was staying. I sat and waited. And that's all we're asking.
So is
for the
there,
town
is
to
there
follow.
current building activity? building
So
of
we have a
machinery?
situation that's a little bit different here, okay? With respect to this stuff we're talking about now. Temporary stuff this year to allow them to operate as they have in the past. So there's some time sensitivity that goes on here.
My father died at 63 years old. I'm 61. I want to build an apartment. Did I get any time sensitive stuff?
Apples and oranges.
No.
Yes. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Green and
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Are they building machinery?
I beg your pardon?
Are they currently building machinery?
No,
Okay.
no, but they've run all the power, water, and
Yeah.
sewer to every location.
But they're not currently actively building that shit again?
Will the judge's order shut them down?
Well, I appreciate that, but they're not in violation of the state in that regard.
Not as we speak today, no.
All right,
Okay.
thanks.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Are you
Thank
building
you.
down, are you building down on your lake lot?
Yes,
Are you?
yeah, I've got the.
Well, we'll put a stop to that.
Yeah. Good luck.
No, he did it legally.
I've got 2-car garage and a barn.
Yeah, but,
That's
With
all.
a building permit, by the way.
right,
It's all framed, and I'll be coming in for a permit for the house.
great.
Hopefully I can break away from my other projects, to get the foundation and septic done.
And Bill, he's doing a residential building in a residential lot. Okay? So I want the lot both. They're doing commercial and residential.
Anyway, it was more productive than I thought it would be.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate the meeting.
All right.
And I do remember your subdivision up on North Line Road.
And drive down.
Remember I looked at the
When
road?
you're going to Rochester the next time, North Brookfield, instead of going down New Route 11, go Old Route 11. And take a look at what happened when Camp Alton, Camp DeWitt, and all the rest of them left. So you want residential subdivisions, that's what you got. There are no camps down there in Alton anymore. Deer Run, I guess, is still there.
Yeah, look, in years past, I appreciated the camp as a neighbor. I just, I watched them put the senior division in with no permits. And I never said boo, all right? Because I didn't want commercial, I didn't want condominiums and all, that was my mind thought. But now I've got 120 kids in the bay, I've got them paddling by my dock when I'm trying to just lay on the dock, and
What happens when we get
I've
older?
got 40 kids camping next to me on tent platforms that no one ever permitted. And it's crazy. I'll invite you down some night and you can enjoy it. I just think they need to be more courteous neighbors.
All right.
And I don't think the gun range should be moved. I think it should stay where it is, where it's grandfathered.
Okay.
So, anyway, appreciate the time.
Thank you, guys. Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
Okay, let's move to the signature file. First up is a notice of appointment. Mark Weimer to the Parks and Rec Commission
Rick?
with a term expiring June of 2020.
I'll move signature.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye. Hopefully we can convince him to run for selectman.
There you go. All right. Next up is land lease for the 2 cell tower sites with Bell Atlantic Mobile Systems. This is a one signature document. It's already signed by Bell Atlantic Mobile, and so it needs approval by this board.
Can I just,
Yeah, yeah,
that'd be great.
sorry, yeah.
Thanks. So the lessee is dating this on the 22nd
February,
of February.
yeah.
Okay, so that would be, it would commence the first day of the next succeeding month, so it's gonna begin today.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same on the piece. I think we looked at the lease agreement. And did, let's see, did this come through our attorney?
Yes,
Okay, so he's already reviewed
let's hope.
it. Yeah, really.
He's billing us for it.
I'll move you as current chairman sign.
All right, and I'll second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
So it's our understanding for the record that these leases will begin today, March 1st, 2021.
Yep. So,
Because it's the first month after the signature of the lessee.
all right, well, all right, so the lessee signed it on January 22nd.
Oh,
So,
it's already in effect. They owe us a month's
well,
rent.
except, so we got date of execution. That's that we have to fill in, and I guess that's when we sign it. So that would be today, right?
18 months from the date that the agreement was signed by the lessor, or B, the first day of the next succeeding month following the date the lessee is granted a building permit.
Okay,
All right.
so but
So we
today's,
don't know when it's gonna start.
yeah,
Okay.
but today is the day that starts the clock,
Right.
if I read this correctly. And you need to notarize this,
Okay.
which you can do, you don't have to do it as we sit here.
Yeah, I'll do it later.
Yep, all right, so,
I just have a question. I didn't want to wait till the end of the meeting. We
Yes.
own these two pieces of property that cell towers are going to be put on, and you are leasing them to these people. How long is the lease for?
25 years.
25 years.
yeah.
Now, we
Well,
received,
it's actually, it's a 5-year term, with,
to renegotiate.
with 4 successive 5-year, extensions possible, so it's 25 years.
25, and there's an escalation clause.
Yep,
Okay, fine. That's question number one. Question number two is, we had talked about owning town property, okay? We'd like to get them back on the tax rolls and so on and so forth. The evaluation of these two properties and the lease money that we're going to receive from the company, was that gonna offset it quite a
The
bit?
two properties are the fire station property and the town garage property. So those two properties would never be sold to the public to go back on the tax rolls. That's one answer. Secondly, the revenue on each piece exceeds the tax revenue that each piece could
Okay,
create.
thank you.
Yep. Because I think the lease rate's about around $25,000 a year per piece.
yeah, that's my recollection.
And the rest of the story is, how soon will they be up and operational for the fire department and police to use them?
We have to wait until they apply for a building permit.
Okay.
But
Yep,
listening to the news this morning, it appears as though they're spending billions of dollars on expanding their wireless network.
Well, we're aware of at least 2 other locations in town that they're working on. One up on the mountain road behind the equipment shed, and the other one down on Eagle Mere on the neck. So there's certainly some activity going on.
Right. And in that same report, it talked about how little money and how little, as they go forward, less and less money they're spending on wired transmission. Which brings us to the electrical co-op, which is moving forward with their high-speed internet connections.
So the next item we have is an intent to cut for lots 3-1-1 and 3-1-2.
It's also, it's a supplement.
Hmm?
It's a supplement
What's
to
up?
his current intent.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
I'll move that we sign the supplement.
and I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There's those.
Oh,
Yeah. Next, we have COVID-19 relief election form for the Health Trust Benefit Advantage. And with this, we can allow town employees who use flexible spending accounts to retain access to last year's contributions
right.
until the end of
June, was it? I thought it was-
the end of December this year.
Okay. We only have 2 people that are participating in that.
Right.
So I'm gonna move that we sign it.
Okay. And I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and this is the one signature deal again. And finally, we have an employment agreement with Christopher Rule. I think this has got everything in it now.
Oh, good.
Take a look to make sure that, well,
Yeah, I talked to Chris this weekend.
good.
Yeah. And where this is a contract for employment as opposed to being part of our wage scale, I told Chris that he's gonna have to come forward and renegotiate if he wants some sort of change in that pay
Yeah.
scale.
Yep. Sounds good to me. All right. I think that's all we got for signature file. So, next up is, let's go to Kathy's updates. All right, first is most recent correspondence from Phil. You put a copy in each of our,
It did.
so he's looking for answers today
Placement.
on several items, right? Placement was one question. The floor plan with revised entry, I guess that's part of that. he wants to know if some windows in the police facility will be operable or if they're all just fixed lights.
Do we, I mean, I'm all for fresh air, but
Yeah,
I think the chief has to decide on that, doesn't he?
on whether they're,
Operable or not operable.
I did forward this to the chief, but I had a call from him this morning. I don't know if he's gonna be in today or just late. They had a shooting.
Okay.
oh, okay, all right. So, I'm struggling to understand why we have to nail down the site plan orientation today before you can do any more work on anything. Something that's, I guess I don't understand.
Yeah, I think I'd like to have Kathy email Phil and say, we're sitting here struggling with why we have to make a decision on the placement of the building. And that's complicated by the fact that in 1 week, we're gonna have an election. So if you can explain to us why a movement of the building would change the cost.
I did tell him you were concerned about that. All I can see is that he put down so that by the end of the week, the CM can redo budget price on all revisions for an update prior to going out to bid.
Yeah, I just hate to get into the situation where we make a decision between the two of us, we have an election, all of a sudden there's disagreement, and we have to revisit this, and Phil starts considering it a change order,
Yeah,
Right.
you know? Design your building in air, and then we'll land it on the ground somewhere. You know? The only thing it's gonna affect is the site work, and it's not gonna affect it that much. I mean, I think in the green setting where the building's twisted a little bit, you've got a bit more pavement,
yeah,
but I'd hazard to say it's, you know, less than.
but, you know, and, you know, yeah, well and septic may be in slightly different positions, but they're not set,
Yeah, I mean, he's already gonna run the septic under the back parking lot. And the well is gonna be on the front lawn, one way or the other.
so, yeah.
And it does get us away from that wetland intrusion, which is important.
Right,
And maybe that's part of it, I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Maybe that's part of it, the wetland side of it.
Oh.
I don't know. I will ask him again.
Yeah, and tell them one way or
Yeah.
another, we're not gonna file a wetlands mitigation plan with DES, so we're not gonna invade those wetlands at all. 'Cause I see that just as
yeah,
wasted money.
all right. So, the next item you had,
The grant writer?
reached out to Rod on the, the grant writer, yeah,
Yeah, I just showed you what I sent her.
Yeah.
Well, the question she asked me, and I answered her on them. So,
So she's back in business.
she's back in business. The other thing was.
so
about Rob.
were you able to pull some stuff together for her?
Oh, yeah, I
Okay.
sent it the same time I got the email, I sent it right
All right,
after.
great. So, see if you can scare up some more for us.
Oh, and make sure that Steve Wingate gets a hold of her, or they connect. Because I think, I heard on the radio, I forget what day it was, Thursday or Friday, that there was a new group set up for purchasing forested land for carbon sequestration. And they were looking at purchasing somewhere in the vicinity of 5,000 acres in northern New Hampshire in little pieces everywhere, and doing that through, and my understanding from the radio was that it was pretty much fully funded. So that's all I know. But there's more people out there who are interested in
Yeah.
conserving forested land.
Yep.
I like the guy with the kelp better though. Did you hear about that guy?
No.
It's a little segue. He's figured out a way to put kelp seeds on a rope and suspend them in the water column of the ocean. And as the kelp grows, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It gets so heavy, it just breaks the rope and falls to the bottom of the ocean. And they're figuring that if they did like 100 square miles of this out in the ocean, they could sequester all the carbon in the atmosphere. And essentially put it on the bottom of the ocean floor and turn it into oil in a million years. So it's gone back to what it came from.
Hey, sounds great.
And he's in Portland, which is good too.
Yeah. Yep. That's neat. All right, so next up
The assessment.
was a assessment question. And I'm not sure that, the question that I had raised was with all of the strong market values and the fact that such a great plurality of what's changing hands is going above assessment value, when we go into a DRA review, and they're gonna say, oh, your assessed valuation is, out of whack. If it's below 88%, I think, or something, then we get our hands slapped. So how do we deal with that?
Well, they're gonna,
And what he's saying here is that that we don't want to be spot adjusting based upon sales, and that's not the question I was asking. I mean, is there a mechanism that we can do an overall adjustment based upon what's going on, other than a total reval? I just don't know how it works, but I don't want us to get in a situation where we're out of whack with DRA because of the strong
my memory of how it worked in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's changed, but I don't think it has. Is that DRA does review your sales versus tax assessment.
Right.
And let's say you're at 88%. They issue a directive that we adjust our tax rate by, in that case, 12%, or there's a 12% adjustment in the assessed value.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, it's not going to adjust the amount of money we collect.
No.
It just adjusts the value of the town.
Right.
And if you do that,
And the reason that's important is for the statewide tax, because if it's out of whack, then some towns pay more than they should.
Yeah.
But he did mention that the whole state's going through this. It's
Well,
not
sure.
just Tufton.
I
So they
understand.
will handle it.
I understand. I'm just not that conversant in the mechanism. So, and I was not suggesting that we do spot
I
adjustments.
don't know, there's some people I like to charge more taxes. They do that.
Yeah,
He did say that they do compare the MFL to the property and adjust it accordingly as he's going through
Right.
his sales, so.
yeah,
And there can be mitigating factors in some of this stuff, but my understanding or recollection is that they look at all the sales. So yeah, you may have one or two houses so high and one or two houses so low, but what's the overall tax assessment or valuation, and how is that reflected in the sales
Right.
figures, and
right,
then they make their adjustments.
yeah, all right. All right, so next up, we had a communication from Guy Pike.
What was that one?
Which is fine. Nice to know that he's amenable.
Oh, no, I missed the page, yeah.
It's the same when you guys.
So we talked about that on Guy's letter. I actually talked to him in person
Good.
and just informed him that, and you can agree or disagree, but my reading of the laws is that once you're sworn in as a selectman, you're a selectman, no matter where you're sitting.
Right.
And if you want to resign your position as a selectman to become a private citizen and sit in another chair, that's fine. But you can't do both, and you can't move from one to the other.
Mhm.
So if he has an opposing opinion on something that the board has done in the past or is doing currently, he can sit there as a selectman and voice his opposing position. And I think neither one of us would be averse to that.
No, not at all.
Don't always agree.
Right.
Take him off the to-do list.
So, okay, and next up, we have a little chart that Kathy put together showing meals and rooms tax that we didn't get. So, the way the law is written, apparently municipalities are supposed to get 22%.
Right.
I'm sorry, they're supposed to get 40% of the meals and rooms tax. That's the way it's in the RSA. But as often happens, when the legislature does their budget, they don't always honor what's in the law in terms of figuring out where they're going to get money to fund everything. So currently, we're getting 22% instead of 40% of meals and rooms. So if I read this correctly, going back 10 years, the difference between what the RSA says we're supposed to have and what the legislature has provided through their budget amounts to $902,138. So, in other words, we have received $1,268,000, and we should have received $2,170,000. So, I think that's good information. It doesn't, and it's appropriate for us to continue to remind the legislature that that money by statute is supposed to come to the towns.
And where did that chart come from, Kathy?
New Hampshire Municipal,
So are they thinking of setting up a class action suit?
they haven't said that, they're just saying that this is in reference to SB 99-N.
And that SB,
And to go after your legislation and say, please vote to have it put back
oh,
to what it
Yeah.
belongs.
Right. So, and I know this is a perennial thing with them, and their engagement with the legislature continues to remind them. But this is just another way, maybe if each of us says to our legislatures, hey, legislators, this funding, huh? Yeah,
And,
well, $900,000 is a lot of money
yes, it is.
in anybody's.
Well, it's, yeah, it represents about an 80% increase over what we've received in the last 10 years. So that's nothing to sneeze at, for sure.
and I did get an email from Coalition Communities 2.0 to remind everybody that on Wednesday at 9 a.m., they're going to be meeting on Zoom. If you need the information on it, I can forward it to you. There's going to supposedly 16 communities going to be in on it, and it is to discuss what happens next.
With school funding.
school.
Right.
On Wednesday,
Wednesday at
9
9
a.m.
a.m.
I have to take my wife for her second COVID shot.
Oh, well,
So I
then-
can't do it.
Then
Okay.
I will,
And I did explain, because I also received a call from, was it, trying to think, one of the northern, she was making calls, she got a list that she was supposed to call, she called me, Tuftonboro, to state that they would like us to make sure we make their meetings, and I explained to them, well, your meetings are on Monday when we have our meetings.
yeah,
So our selectmen can't attend it because they're having their own meeting.
yeah.
And then she was kind of surprised we had Monday meetings. But other than that,
All right, so 9 o'clock Wednesday,
Wednesday,
all right.
Yeah, I
Right.
appreciate that.
I put it in my calendar, so
See what
hopefully I'll
happens.
remember. No guarantees, but
do you want me to send that to your other?
Yes.
email? Your
yeah,
other
if you
email?
send me the, I'm sure it's in my town email, which I'm not getting yet. Something I gotta
Yes,
chase this
indeed.
week. All right, let's move on to correspondence. Update on where the fire department off-road snow machine incident training was held. Last week, the chief had talked about holding it up on Mountain Road at Transformer Hill, and they decided that that was not a big enough location for bringing everybody into. So he explains that they worked with Clay and they used the transfer station parking area as a place to
Nice.
collect. And that Mrs. Vidaman called them because they hadn't talked to her about using her property. And he explained, well, we moved it, so that's why we haven't talked to her. So, anyway, says the training went well, everybody that took part gained some good insight of what would be needed if it was a real situation. Board of Adjustment is meeting tomorrow at 7 p.m. And one of the items they're going to be discussing is Don McWhorter's appeal. So, and then this is the organizational meeting, March 3rd. You're going to forward that email to me. Executive counselors' notes from 217. I didn't look through them, so I don't know what
I
all went.
did. I did, and I didn't see anything that really
Yeah.
impacted Tuftonboro.
Okay, so, and finally, on last Tuesday, Guilford ZBA had a hearing on cell tower.
And we were notified on that.
Huh?
I remember we were notified on that.
Yeah, we were, and somehow we didn't deal with it before this morning, so, anyway. All right, Selectmen's updates.
I met with Chris. I talked to Guy. I've been reviewing, I spent a lot of time reviewing the court cases that we talked about this morning.
Yep.
And I still haven't, Kathy thought she sent me the modified stay, but she didn't. She just sent me some signature page.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll continue to look for that document so that we can at least be well versed in it. I'll apologize again for not remembering that we were allowing sewer hookups, but I'm still confused about why we don't want a new septic system down there if the camp's not going away and
So,
Little Bottom's poop.
as near as I can tell, what their issue is that some of the new sewer piping that they would hook these trailers into is connected with the cabins that they're moving to the site that are part of the site plan that's under stay. So it's like, okay, so they're putting the sewer pipe in on a design that's not improved, and then we're going to hook up to it. And as near as I can tell, that's what they're.
Yeah, it would be nice to get it cleaned up, but I mean, I don't think that all of the invective and craziness that we heard this morning helps at all get
No.
it cleared up.
No, well, I think I've observed this before, but one of the things that happens is, when you let things in the past dominate, take up space in your head, it affects you more than it affects other people. You know, it's, I don't know if, no, enough said on that.
You become a Hatfield or you become a McCoy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Let's see. I don't know. For me, Ag Commission meets tomorrow afternoon. It's a Zoom meeting. Anybody wants to participate? I am taking the opportunity of reminding boards that if you want to continue to meet virtually, that's fine, but make sure you abide by all the requirements of the law, which includes the opportunity for members of the public to be able to call in, to click in on Zoom or whatever it is. Anytime you do votes when you're meeting remote, it's got to all be roll call. It's got to be recorded as roll call. It's a pain in the neck, but that's what it is. I mean, people are sort of getting into, it's easy to meet remotely. Yeah, it is to an extent, but we got to make sure we cover these other pieces.
Well, we may, not today, but sometime this calendar year, we're going to revisit that hopefully, because I think it's handy to be able to remote meet, but I think it's a lot better for the public if you actually have a meeting place. That
Yes, exactly. And, you know, I hear a variety of excuses like, well, nobody from the public ever comes, so, yeah, doesn't matter. It's a public body, we have to be accessible. And having an opportunity for people to Zoom in is fine, but there's a significant part of our local population that doesn't Zoom or doesn't want to Zoom.
And they may not be interested in every issue, but there might be an issue that comes up that they are interested in.
Exactly. Now, the governor's order is going to expire at some point, and when it does, it all goes back to life, unless there's some legislative change. I don't remember when it's currently scheduled to expire, but it's reasonable to expect that sometime this year, we're going to go back to doing live meetings. I think having camera access for people to live meetings is fine, but you still have to have, that doesn't excuse you from
There's
physically.
actually, this morning I was hearing that the way the Maine governor and council or governor wrote the pandemic rules
Mhm.
is concerned that the annual town meetings, the traditional gathering of the town people is going to go away in a lot of parts of Maine because of the way that the emergency legislation was written. And I hadn't even thought of that possibility here in New Hampshire, but I'm not a constitutional scholar, so I have no idea whether it was written poorly or.
Yep.
But I think it's important that we retain, I mean, as much as a pain in patootie it can be, it's, the annual town meeting, I think, is an important historical function.
Yeah. Absolutely. So planning board's scheduled to meet here on Thursday night. I'm not aware of any particular business coming up this week, but it's on the schedule. One thing I neglected to do when I was going through correspondence, we have a letter from the advancement chairman of Troop 165 regarding a young man who has completed his Eagle, and they're going to be having a court of honor and would be interested in having a letter from the town recognizing his achievement.
And did he I guess two questions. Is he a resident of Tufton Borough? And did he do his Eagle Scout project here?
So his Eagle Scout project was, had to do with the reclamation of the Tufton Road Central Park trail system. Letter trooping, clearing, and remarking the trails. So, I don't know if he lives in town or not, but certainly
He did the work
the
here.
effort of his work is here in town. And so that's,
She did send an individual letter to each of you. I didn't know if she wanted one from each of you or just the town in general.
I would suggest that the board send him a letter, we'll
Yeah.
both sign it.
Yeah.
I don't know when the court is meeting, but, all right.
Well, we can sign on Friday when it comes to.
Yeah, yep,
We're not meeting Monday, we're meeting Tuesday.
we are meeting Tuesday next week, all day. So we have a couple of evaluations we can be working on next Tuesday.
Right, and that might be a good time, once Phil gets his stuff together, to have him come down and visit.
To have what?
Phil?
Phil, next Tuesday? Yeah.
I'm thinking just to,
And it's
we're doing a lot of
particular
emailing
time.
back and forth, and
I don't have any preference, we're there all day,
so
so,
we're there all day.
you know, if he wants to come in the morning, that's fine, if the afternoon's more, convenient for him, that would work.
And we could-
You do have police, fire, all that too.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's,
We've got all day.
yeah, we got all day, so,
We'll bring the New York Times crossword puzzle.
yep, bring a good book, be ready to go. Do we have any other business? Do we have any public input? Yes?
2 items, planning board meeting Thursday night, will Farm Island come up as a topic of discussion?
I doubt it.
Okay, fine.
They're not on.
It's an approved subdivision.
We spent an hour on it today, and I remember taping these things back at the school way
Yeah.
back when.
Right,
So we rehashed a lot of stuff.
right.
So
Fine.
is,
Oh, go ahead.
just a question on the same topic, is the ZBA meeting about the shooting range lot at Belmont?
I guess I'd say yes. Okay, it's not, it has, their contention is that the camp needs the zoning board approval to do something on that property.
Okay.
And that's not the conclusion that the planning board reached in reviewing the record of use and what's been done with the property over the years and that sort of thing.
So it's an appeal of the planning board decision.
That's right. So it's an appeal that's, I guess, says basically nothing should happen until special exception is allowed. So at the time, as I recall, at the time the camp purchased the property, the table of uses that we have in our regs today did not exist, or did not exist in anywhere near the form it is today. So the camp began using it after they purchased it, and the town has regarded it as uses on it as summer camp since then. His contention is that, well, it's just been a piece of property that they've used, they didn't have any buildings on it, so this is a new use and needs an exception. Planning board council reviewed it as we went through the process and came to the conclusion that the record supported that it was an ongoing use that was grandfathered. So, you know,
Okay,
the board didn't like it, he appealed it,
there it is.
and on it goes.
I'm sorry, Joe, I just.
It's all right, no, let's
Yep.
get it all done.
Yep, so to answer your question, I hope Farm Island doesn't come up again.
Okay, fine.
And,
So my next question is, Glenn Cordelli is part of the legislature.
Out?
Glenn?
He's in the legislature.
He's
yes.
in the legislature, he's
Right.
our representative.
Yep.
Is there another person that's also associated with the town of Tufton who's a representative for us?
So Carol Crawford
Carol
is our other
Crawford.
Okay,
rep.
And Jed Bradley.
so,
Well, Jeb is our senator, and
That's the legislature.
yeah,
who's the floterial? It's
Dr. Marsh.
Dr. Marsh. So we have three people in the legislature.
well, I've asked this question in the past and it seems to have fallen on deaf ears. But do you think we could send them a notice once a month for them to show up at a meeting and let us know what the hell's going on? I mean, what did they get elected for? You know, just to ride, just, anyways, that's my request. I don't know what this town can do, but if we send you a notice, say, hey, you wanna show up and tell us what's happening? I mean, we keep talking about them all the time, but it's, again, it's not doing any good.
Yep.
They're supposed to be held responsible. You guys certainly are. You show up here every Monday, take care of town business. That's your job.
Yep.
All right, thank you for listening.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Any other business? I don't see anything we need to do non-public today.
I'm gonna move that we adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.